Hit it.
Welcome to the Test Talks podcast, the place to go to geek out on software testing. And now your host, whose mission is to help you succeed with test automation, Joe Colantonio.
Hey, it's Joe, and welcome to another episode of Test Talks. Today we're going to talk all about performance testing in 2019, what you need to do in order to make your software more performant in the new year, and make sure your users don't experience massive performance issues, especially during holiday seasons or when using some of your mission-critical features of your software. You don't want to miss this episode? If you really want to turn up your software development testing efforts, check it out. Test Talks is sponsored by the fantastic folks at Source Labs, the cloud-based automated testing platform that eliminates the need to maintain your own Selenium grid and test infrastructure. Try it for free today. Visit testtalks.com and click on the Sign Up Now link under the homepage sponsor section. I can't believe I've been testing now for almost 20 years. And in my experience, unfortunately, not many software organizations are familiar with the needs of performance testing or even have the expertise to do so. Even worse, hardly anyone is attempting to add this activity earlier and earlier in their software development lifecycle, like most other shift-left testing efforts. One major roadblock that prevents teams from successfully executing performance testing, I think, is a lack of training. Sometimes knowing just where to start can be a challenge. So that's why I am putting on the second annual online conference dedicated 100% to performance testing, PerfGuild, going on April 8th to the 9th, where we bring together some of the biggest names in the software performance testing space to share a tip, tool, technique, or best practice that's going to help accelerate your team's performance testing efforts. So today I'd like to go over some of the speakers, what they'll be speaking about, and explain why I think you should care about performance testing, even though I realize that nowadays people can just say, oh, we just go in the cloud and we just turn auto-scale on and we don't have to worry about performance testing anymore. I think that is a seriously flawed approach to performance testing, and it doesn't take into account all the other things that can affect your performance. So even as you auto-scale, there's still performance issues that could turn up because it's not all about just more CPU. So in this episode, I'd like to introduce to you to some of the speakers speaking at this year's PerfGuild and some of the sessions and why I think this is a must event for you. And I just realized recently I've been using the term performance testing, and that might be kind of antiquated because more people are using the term site reliability. So if you're thinking, I don't do performance testing, but you do site reliability or you're a site reliability engineer, I believe this is the same type of topics you need to know about to help you succeed with your efforts as well. So let's get to our first speaker.
Hello, everyone. This is Leandro Melendez. You may know me with my internet alias as Señor Performo. I come today to talk to you about some techniques that I like to apply on many of my projects and to give you some ideas, some suggestions, and some practices that you can implement in your projects that probably, hopefully, will ease and help your life on a daily basis. So, what am I talking about? As you may have noticed, my topic is called IPA, Integrated Performance Assurance, and you might be asking yourself, what is the deal with this IPA thing? So, many might think of IPA as a delicious type of beer that many of us like. Personally, I like, and that have some effects on the performance of a person, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But as you may be wondering, I'm not talking about beer. I'm talking about practice named Integrated Performance Assurance, IPA, that's the acronym, which, as it says it, is some sort of performance practice integrated into your solution. It has several pieces, several suggestions that I'm going to tell about in this presentation. But let's move through it little by little, and I hope that you get the best example. Several pieces, several suggestions that I'm going to tell about in this presentation, but let's move through it little by little, and I hope that you get the best example, become the one, the very most powerful entity in the matrix. You might remember from the movie, there was this phrase that he would read just before he was given some of the keys to become the one, Temet Noske, which means more or less know yourself, know thyself. It's very important to know yourself, to improve, to get into better places. But if you are thinking like, well, Matrix stuff, it's just a movie, let's move to someone more respectable. Our friend Socrates used to call it gnothi seoton, which means pretty much the same, is a philosophy and the practice of working from the point where you know about yourself everything. But you might be asking, what does this has to do with performance testing? Well, if you think or feel that a philosopher might be too far or too much in the past to talk about systems, let's talk about this friend. You may not know him. This is a little bit more contemporary philosopher and from our area of expertise. His name is Bob Westcott. Our friend Bob wrote an awesome book that talks a lot about performance testing, and he opens this awesome book talking about this situation. The book, its name, is the Every Computer Performance Book. Very good book if you haven't read it. And the opening lines of this book, he talks about the importance in terms of performance testing of knowing your system. The very first step that you should approach when you arrive at a performance testing project is to know the metrics, to have them, to know how your system is doing. And to this extent, several companies are like pretty much walking blind around in this topic, and they don't even know what is their performance. They have no idea. They just have a feeling, but nothing specific. So what comes in terms of these companies not knowing those metrics is that they don't know specifically the metrics, the response times, the utilization, and they might be misplacing them or trying to guess them or having wrong metrics on them pretty much. And the big problem that I find on this situation is that they often live with an attitude of pretty much who knows, who cares. I mean, it's something that it's not broken. Why should I check it? Many of them start to get some interest about it when they get burned. And usually it's very bad. You might remember things like Obamacare, H&R Block, where their systems just went down because they were like, who cares about those metric things, and it's not important. And on top of that, there's a big misunderstanding in the terms of performance testing.
Thank you, Leandro, for your awesome session. And as you mentioned, a lot of people don't really care about performance testing until it's too late, until it's in production and it's crashing and your customers are freaking out and your IT department's freaking out because they don't know what happened. You don't want to be caught off guard. It's bad for you. It's bad for your users. It's bad for your brand. And Leandro goes over his framework for creating better performant applications and what to look out for specific to your application. Really great session. You don't want to miss it. So head on over to perfguild.com and register today. Next up, we have Scott Moore. I've been doing performance testing since 2000, and Scott Moore has been one of those thought leaders for pretty much all that time that I've been into performance testing. So it's really an honor to have him as well joining us, and he's going to go over IoT performance testing.
Hi, I'm Scott Moore, and I'm going to be talking to you today about performance testing Internet of Things applications. I'm really excited to be here for the PerfGuild conference. I'm sure you're getting a lot out of it. In my presentation, I'm hoping that I can share some things that you go back and research yourself and do more study on, because it's a lot of details. It's a short period of time to share it with you. I will start with an overall look at what an IoT application looks like from an architectural standpoint. We're going to talk a lot about protocols. So the more that you understand about the OSI model, how TCP/IP works, TCP, UDP, the easier it will be for you to create a strategy around performance testing the different layers. So that's really the purpose here, is to help you build some kind of an end-to-end testing strategy, share with you some of the tools that are out there that can help you in terms of automation and generating load. And then I'm going to share with you a real world example of something I've actually done, and hopefully share best practices so that you don't step on the same minefields I did. Maybe you can use that as a starting point for your own best practices. So with that, there is a lot to share. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you unfamiliar with me, I have been a performance engineer for over 20 years, worked in some of the largest companies, and tested some of the largest applications that exist. And I've been talking a lot about performance engineering, testing, and monitoring for many years in conferences as well. I'm glad to add PerfGuild to that list. What makes me uniquely qualified to talk to you today is that I helped build an IoT protocol in the Micro Focus Load Runner product, and I've been involved in a couple of IoT startups as well. So I've actually done this, and it's about experiential knowledge. But enough about me. Let's talk about IoT. On the left, you have what I'm calling the cloud, but that could represent any application that sits behind a firewall in a company or up in the cloud that is going to take and ingest data from the right-hand side, those sensors, through a network, visualize that or produce information, act on information, and have users use an application based on the data it receives. On the right, you have the sensors, the things that are in Internet of Things. Somehow it's got to get to and from the application to the sensor. So the sensor is sitting out in the world. This could be, think about things that you use all the time. A phone, a laptop. It could be a sensor that's inside of your refrigerator now. It could be Amazon Alexa. It could be a myriad of things. Somehow that sensor is either taking in a metric, or it's receiving data and taking action upon it, but it's got to go through some kind of a network. And here's where we start talking about protocols. Whatever domain that we're in, whether that's in healthcare, in manufacturing, retail, there is something that we need to know. There's data that we need, and we're going to either control something, cause things to happen because of information we've received, send out directives, or have some kind of a measurement. So here you see in the middle the types of sensors and controllers. So things where we can control air conditioning, lighting. We can also take in temperature, humidity, and graph those. So somehow we have to get this information to and from the business side of this. So that's that cloud view. So look at some of the names of these protocols. So you see cellular, okay, think Verizon, 4G, LTE, Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi router, Bluetooth, and then you get into things like Zigbee and some of the Z-Wave, some things you may not have heard of. But we also have TCP/IP in there. So I want to talk about the fact that there are different layers in this protocol stack that we call it. One thing is a physical connection. So are you going to choose Bluetooth to connect, or are you going to choose a cellular LTE connection to connect? So that would be more of the physical connection, or even an Ethernet cable if you think about that. But then through that physical connection, there needs to be some sort of a protocol for transporting that data. And this is where we're going to talk about variances on TCP/IP. It could actually be just TCP/IP, but typically we're going to have a protocol that is sort of a slimmed down version, because we're sending small amounts of information, sometimes over long distances, and we're not dealing with large broadband connections. So we have to make the best use, most efficient use of that protocol.
Thank you, Scott, for that awesome IoT session. If you're doing anything with IoT and you're not sure where to get started, this is a great session to help get your feet wet and to actually see a working example on how Scott does performance testing on IoT. It's a great session to both high level talk about what is IoT and why IoT performance testing is important, but also a great hands-on session on how to actually do it to get you kind of familiar with the terminology and the things you're going to need to know as you're dealing with your own IoT applications. Next up, we're going to have Victoria Kustnikova talk about building performance testing pipelines for your continuous integration, continuous delivery systems. You'll learn about all the challenges and solutions for building automated performance testing pipelines for your CI/CD projects. As I mentioned, I think performance testing is often overlooked. And one of the areas that's really overlooked is actually integrating into your CI/CD systems. This is a great intro to how you can get started from someone that's actually done it, from an expert. Let's listen in to Victoria's session.
Hello there. My name is Victoria, and I've been in software testing for 15 years. For the last 5 years of it, I have been dedicating my time specifically to performance testing. And in that time, I have built a few performance testing pipelines for automated testing. In the modern world, development teams are doing a lot of continuous integration and continuous delivery kind of processes. And they release software a few times a month, and they release software for testing sometimes every day or even more often. To keep up the quality of software in such tight schedule, you need automated testing. And performance testing is no exception here, if the company is mature enough to do performance testing at all. This is a big topic, and we only have 25 minutes or so I had to limit my material somewhat. I have decided so that the most important part for me is to give you a high-level understanding of how to build a performance testing pipeline for automated testing, to name a few problems that you might run on your way there, and to point you to solutions. My hope is that this talk will be a starting point for you to build your own performance testing pipeline. So without further ado, let's begin. You all surely know how challenging performance testing can be. Continuous performance testing elevates most of those challenges on a new level, because you need not only to solve those, but do it in a repeatable fashion and without human intervention. You need not only to set up a realistic test environment and prepare a large volume of realistic test data. You need to do it on demand and do it fast, in a matter of minutes or at most hours. You need to ensure your tests are trustworthy, and any significant results variation points to an application change. You need to automate test results analysis and come up with a way to present your test results in an easy-to-read format for your target audience, most commonly PMs and dev teams. We will talk about solving these challenges in more details in the next slides. One more thing that is, I believe, important is storing the whole pipeline, including test scripts, as a code. If you rely on anything that is not code, that you cannot commit to a source control system and easily review when changes are made, your performance testing pipeline will start falling apart when maintenance is needed. Especially if a handover to another person is involved, it just gets so messy so fast. I will talk about it a bit more further on. Now here's a high-level view on a typical performance testing pipeline.
Thank you, Victoria, for your session. As I mentioned, I think this is a really critical piece of your software development lifecycle that I think you're probably missing out on, and that is actually incorporating performance testing into your CI/CD pipeline. So, Victoria, thank you so much for this really timely session on a critical topic I think we all need to know about. You know, I'll be honest, one of the reasons why I put on these conferences is not only because I think you're going to get awesome value from it, and I really believe it's going to help you with your career and with making better software. Making is really to help you rid the world of buggy software, but also because I like to learn and I like to keep current. You know, as I get older, I really need to stay up to speed. And that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed the next session by Gopal Brugalet on machine learning applications and performance analysis. If you've been following the show for any length of time, for the past year, you've been following my blog posts, or even the industry in general, you've probably been hearing a lot about machine learning, AI, and automation testing. And where I think that's still in its infancy and maybe not fully matured, where I think machine learning can really help us is in analyzing data. So where do you have a lot of data when you're doing testing? Performance testing, right? Think performance testing, all the data, all the metrics you get back. It's really I've always said the hardest part about performance testing is not necessarily creating the performance test, but actually analyzing the data after. So Gopal goes over how you can use different kinds of machine learning algorithms to analyze your application's performance data to gain greater insights into what's happening. So you're going to discover how to get started with AI-based performance analysis. Check it out.
I'm Gopal. I've been doing performance engineering for over 15 years. That includes working with e-commerce, financial institutions, and SaaS providers. Now, when I think about performance engineering, it's all about the data analysis. We collect so many different metrics like CPU, memory, and response time. And we summarize that data into information. And from the information, we get insights about what is the customer experience or what's the health of our system. And from those insights, we take the appropriate action either to improve the customer experience or to resolve system issues. And it's that process of going from data to information to insight to action that really makes me think of performance engineering as a data science. Now, the typical way we approach to analyze our data is by creating dashboards. But it just doesn't scale. We can't go on creating hundreds and hundreds of dashboards. We need a better way to approach our analysis. Now, machine learning gives us a way to do just that. It's a really common tool within data science. And machine learning is really just the math that allows computers to do the type of analysis that we as performance engineers do and do it in an automated fashion. In this presentation, I'm going to show you 3 different common machine learning algorithms: linear regression, clustering, and neural networks. I'll show you how they work and the use cases in which you can apply them to performance data analysis. It's going to be a really great starting point for you to go and explore machine learning on your own.
So in our first use case, we want to build a machine learning model to better understand the customer experience. We start with what's called feature engineering. We first have to understand what data we have and what it tells us about our goal or what we want to predict. In performance, we have a lot of metrics like CPU, memory utilization, response time, user load, or counts, and we need to understand how are they related. And one of the best metrics to understand customer experience is going to be response time, of course.
Thank you again, Gopal, for your session. I think it's really a timely session and needed session as we start incorporating more machine learning type algorithms into our testing, especially performance testing. All right, next, we have a session by Christina Talasingam. I first saw Christina, I think maybe at SourceCon, the first SourceCon. She had a really awesome session on performance testing. I'm like, oh, I need to get her as a speaker. But she was mobbed by people asking her questions, and I chickened out at actually asking her to if she'd like to be on the show. But luckily, I got up my courage and I asked her if she'd like to be a speaker at PerfGuild, and she agreed. And she's going to be doing a hands-on session on JMeter. Really knows her stuff. Really enjoyed this session. So let's check in what Christina has to say about JMeter.
Welcome to PerfGuild Day 2. And I'm Christina Talasingam, and I'm glad to be part of this PerfGuild. So I'm a senior quality engineer at Cisco Labs, been in the test automation field for about 4 years now, and I am very much interested in not just the non-functional test automation, but also functional test automation as well. And a couple of you might have seen me in few of the Selenium conferences that happened in the last few years. So that's about myself. You guys can follow me on Twitter as well. So today I'm going to talk to you about tips and tricks on using JMeter. So basically I'll be covering the importance of performance testing. I know we are in a PerfGuild, but for those who are beginners and who are interested in starting performance testing, and then I'll start talking about JMeter and then the tips and tricks on how to use it in a very sophisticated manner. So what is performance testing? So we know that performance testing is basically putting our system into a drastic load so that we can know if our system, as the days go, will be able to handle a massive load, right? And also to understand the bottlenecks or which part of the system has difficulties in handling massive load. And also there are aspects like endurance testing, where over a period of time we give little amount of load so that we understand how the system can perform within that given particular time, right? So JMeter is one of the popular performance testing tools, and if you see, it's been in the industry for a very long time, and it's with the Apache community, and it's open source, and that's very helpful because there's a lot of tools like BlazeMeter and Redline who use JMeter, the JMX files, and build more sophisticated performance testing tests. So we can use JMeter to start learning because it's open source and they have grown over time. So currently they're on version 5 and there's a lot of features that lots of the users who use JMeter are not aware of, and they tend not to use it, but it helps your testing. So today we're going to concentrate on that, and this is very tool specific, but it'll be helpful for those who are interested. Next, we'll be talking about why should we use JMeter. So one of the main things I said is it's open source and hence anyone can get their hands on it, right? And the next thing is it's applicable not just for web services or web application, but also you can use it for JMS, database and so on, right? FTP and all. And then you can run it on command line. You can add some code snippets, make your test more sophisticated, which I'll be covering in the tricks section. And it has a full-featured IDE, so it's helpful. Like, you don't really have to script a lot for straightforward performance testing. So it's helpful for beginners especially. And moreover, there's a lot of samplers, plugins that are now available in the market or in the industry that really helps us to have sophisticated JMeter tests. So enough of all this. Let's get to the point, right? So this is the tip 1 that I have for you today. So I'll be covering this in a little demo at the end of the session. So this is tip 1, pave the way.
That's just a teaser. If you want to get Christina's tips for JMeter and performance testing, make sure to register now at PerfGuild.com. And the last session I have for you as a preview is from Jacek Okerozek. I need to really practice these names before I go live. And he has an awesome session on performance testing from a user's perspective. As I mentioned, performance testing really can impact your user's experience. There's nothing worse than releasing software after testing it functionally and not even thinking about performance, only to get caught with bad performance software and angry customers. So I think this session is going to really help you really focus on performance testing from your user's perspective.
Hi, my name is Jacek and I work for Test Army, which is a consulting company that designs business-driven quality excellence framework. We use this framework to optimize testing effort for our clients so they can focus on their business and be sure that they deliver products with the highest quality. I specialize in performance testing. I started my career in Ericsson, where I learned how to test performance of telecommunication systems. And that was the great place to start because Ericsson is known as provider of the most reliable telecommunication software. So they have a great approach to quality, great standards, great tools, and I was able to learn all of this and use it later in the other projects. And actually later on, I participated in projects from financial, gaming, medical, and e-commerce domains, where I adjusted the approach taken from Ericsson to new products and new domains. Today, I would like to present you the approach to measuring performance from user perspective. And I think that this angle of performance testing is quite often omitted, and we rely mostly on metrics provided by standard performance testing tools like JMeter, Gatling, or any other commercial tools. And unfortunately, the metrics that are provided by those tools are not precise enough and they are not accurate enough. and they present the view from the more or less server-side perspective and not from the user perspective. So I would like to give you some insights how to change your methodology and how to add some new tools that can help improve quality of your measurements. Before explaining what is important from the user perspective and how we can measure this, let's see what is the difference between fetching site using browser and simulating the same action using typical performance testing tool.
Thanks again, Jacek, for your awesome session. Besides these sessions I gave you a preview of, we're also going to have sessions by Wilson Marr, who's going to have one on how to handle performance issues at scale in the cloud. We also have a really cool session by the company Gremlin, which has a cool product to help you with chaos testing, or they call it chaos engineering, by Anna Medina. Really excited to have her join the guild and show us a hands-on demo of how you can actually use this product for chaos engineering. This also goes around this whole concept of site reliability tools that I think are becoming more and more the norm here. We're going to have a roundtable on site reliability engineering hosted by Paul Bruce and Laura Stone, who are two experts on site reliability. Great to have them on board. We also have a session by Flood.io on making load testing with real browsers a reality. So this is going to be a really cool session as well. Besides that, we have the very famous James Pulley. James Pulley is the first person that when I went to a conference really early on in my career, he actually had almost like groupies, someone going, "Oh my God, that's James Pulley. He's the performance testing expert." That's the first time I ever thought, wow, you can actually be famous within a very small niche. So anyway, James is going to have a great session on absolute performance. We also have Henrik Rex joining us. Again, he was in the first PerfGuild on how to shift left by shifting right. We have a session by SmartBear. We also have a roundtable session by, listen to these experts joining us on this roundtable. Ask us anything about performance testing. We have Dawn Haynes, Mark Tomlinson, and Alex Podelka. So you can ask them any type of question you might have around performance testing, and they will be able to handle it for you. Those of you that are new to Guild conferences, let me tell you a little bit about the format really quickly. First, I ask that the speakers pre-record their sessions so I can ensure the best audio video quality possible. During the conference, I stream that session, and then I bring in the speaker live for live Q&A so you can ask them any question you might have about their particular topic or any topic in general that has to do with performance testing, because like I said, these folks are all performance testing experts. We also have an awesome private Slack channel. We can ask your questions, and it really is more of like a meetup type community. And another bonus, the whole event is then recorded and uploaded to what is pretty much a membership site. So not only do you get to experience the sessions during the conference, but also long after the conference is over, you can download these sessions, you can log into the site and keep them forever. So I think that's a great benefit as well. I think it's an awesome experience. You definitely want to check it out. Head on over to it now and register today. PerfGuild.com, an online conference dedicated to performance testing happening in April 8th to the 9th. So if you're listening to this now, you only have maybe 3 weeks to register. You want to get in on this. It's really affordable and probably some of the best ROI you can get on training because you don't have to travel. You don't have to spend money on airfare. You don't have to deal with any of that hassle. So definitely check it out. Head on over to PerfGuild.com. Register today. For links to everything of value we covered in this episode, head on over to testtalks.com/245. And while you're there, make sure to click on that sign up for a free trial link under the exclusive sponsor section to learn all about Sauce Labs' awesome products and services. So that's it for this episode of Test Talks. I'm Joe, and my mission is to help you succeed with creating automation awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Test Talks podcast. Head on over to www.testtalks.com for full show notes, amazing blog articles, and other automation awesomeness.